Thailand. Aren't you lucky to base yourselves in those countries and base yourself in those countries? I was in Indonesia about 6 weeks ago. Um, I love that country. It's a second home. Keep going. Where are you from? Maybe not, sorry, not where you're from. Where are you calling in? Where are you now? What is your location, rather? So we've got, seeing a lot of Central and Eastern Europe here. We've got some Romania. We've also got some Czech Republic, Poland, Slovenia, Georgia, Ukraine, Bulgaria. Then we've got some Central and Southern Americas. We've got Costa Rica. I think I saw, who have we got? Uruguay, did I see earlier? UAE, good stuff. So people in Asia, you are up a bit late. So an Indonesian in Thailand, that is, I'm going to try and have a guess. Is that 9 o'clock in the evening? About 9 in the evening. Costa Rica, Thailand, Turkey, Jordan. Oh, another beautiful, beautiful place. You all live in beautiful places. Please don't think I'm favoritizing here. Romania, good stuff. And Teresa, hi Teresa. That's a lovely name. I haven't spoken to you in a few years. I hope you're okay. Who else have we got? Kasia from Poland. Hello. Hi, Teresa. Good stuff. All right, welcome everybody. So, Advancing Learning Day 2025, Universal Design for Learning. Oh, I've got a bit of a sort of a pop quiz, not pop quiz. I'm not going to test you. Who here say yes if yes or have done or tried it before? Those sort of positive statements if you've heard of UDL and you kind of know what it's about, but you're here to learn more. And then no, not, don't know it. I'm really intrigued though. Those sort of statements, if you haven't really experienced this at all, and you really want to learn what this is, this concept, and how it's going to help you. So we've got the yeses and pros and yes, experienced a little bit. And you've got the no, not really. I really want to learn. I haven't yet. What have we got? Slightly yes. Good evening to Thailand, Rowena. You're very lucky to be in Thailand. I believe it's quite a nice time of year there as well. Don't know. Not yet. Okay. Bit of a mix. Okay. Well, you're in the right place. We're going to teach you a little bit about it today. Well, I'm not. I'll take a bit of the credit, but I'm not actually going to teach you anything about UDL. Louis, Alison, and Marta are. Good stuff. Welcome, everybody. So, I am going to share my screen. Funnily enough. Doobie doobie doobie. There we go. Keep it going. And I think just to keep the chat flowing, I do think it's important at this time of a session like this to get your fingers warmed up, get used to saying things in the chat box, even if you think it's useless and no one wants to hear it. We do want to hear it. It makes it all the more inclusive and enjoyable and engaging and communicative and communal. The more you just say things, just respond. It really helps to sort of get your sort of self into the event. So let's have one more thing. Give us an adjective for how you feel at the moment. How are you feeling? What kind of day have you had? What are you doing this evening? Is there something going on tonight that you're feeling excited about or looking forward to collapsing on the sofa later maybe? Okay, so the Universal Design for Learning. That is our day. This is what you can expect. We've got Louis Lord Nelson, PhD, taking us through the gears of the guidelines for UDL. So that session will really warm you into what the framework of UDL is and what it kind of means to a teacher. Then we've got Alison Posey talking about how you can start using that in a classroom setting, what that looks like physically, tangibly. And then Marta is our ELT person in UDL, really going really practically into how to implement some of these practices into an ELT classroom specifically. So kind of wherever you're coming from, hopefully, we're kind of assuming that this is an introduction for you. So don't worry if you don't really know this another acronym, but we're here to kind of start leading a bit of a path in front of you to take a few steps towards being a UDL informed teacher. So before we go on, I've got a few things to let you know about. Firstly, we've got some more events. This session is kicking off a sort of an end of the year series of events that we're doing. We've got the Advancing Learning Day today. Then on the 12th of November, we've got our Young Learners Day. On the 26th of November, we've got our Preparing Teenagers Day. And then on the 10th of December, we've got our Educating Adults Day. All of those wonderful speakers, some of them we've worked with before, some of them we're working with for the first time. And they are each kind of event has got its own kind of thread going on. So as you can see, they're all, the first one is, if you're a teacher of young learners, I would suggest going to that one. But I'm sure you can take some from the others. If you kind of just love going to these things, please do come. I'm sure there's plenty to take from them. If you don't teach teens, you're very welcome at the Preparing Teens Day. So the Young Learners Day is sort of looking at agency, critical awareness, media literacy, learning about yourself and how you learn, self-awareness, critical thinking, global thinking, and how those skills develop from literally from nursery, actually. We're starting from nursery in this Young Learners Day, all the way up to the end of primary at sort of the 10, 11 years old, with Miriam in the middle talking about the sort of 3, 4, 5 sort of early preparatory years before school. And the Preparing Teens Day is sort of raising awareness of the world of teenagers now and what they might be like in 10 years' time. So we've got Lorna talking about design thinking. So helping develop those skills that we feel that teenagers, or rather Lorna feels, and we at McMillan feel that teenagers should be preparing themselves to have for the world of work. Then we've got Claire Bowles taking us through the world of social media from the perspective of a teenager and how we as teachers can sort of firstly help teenagers sort of navigate it, but also how that might inform our teaching practices too. And then we've got Anna Hasper talking about digital wellness, sort of following on from Claire's talk, and how to keep those, help those students and support them to be mindful of the things that they're seeing and doing online. And then we've got Educating Adults Day, which is all about supplementing the course, being a flexible teacher to some extent where you're able to, where your scenario doesn't really quite fit the course that you're using and you need to adapt it to fit. Anyway, so a day about supplementation, basically. You can register now. There's a link in the chat box, and there should be a link at the bottom of the screen. Is there? I'm sure there is. Gabby, if you don't mind putting it back up just in case. So yeah, there you go. Register now. They're free. Just go along and enjoy, develop, grow, love. Okay, so we've got a certificate coming to you in about a week by email, and you'll have a virtual goodie bag as well. Today, we've got a very special virtual goodie bag today. We've been extremely generous today with our virtual goodie bag. And I will tell you what's in there in a second. Any problems? That's our email address. Screenshot that if you like. If you sort of you didn't get your certificate, please not within the next week. We will send them within a week. So please don't email us on Friday asking where the certificate is, because it's not going to be there until sort of next Wednesday kind of time. Anyway, the exciting stuff, the virtual goodie bag. That's it. That's the virtual goodie bag. You've got the session recordings and the presentation. That's coming. That'll be in there. Not right away. That we obviously we're recording it right now, so don't expect that to be in there now because it's live. We are live. If you're on social media, you will need to register for the event to get this email, to get the virtual goodie bag. So if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, just keep that in mind. So you can register now, and you can come to this event now at macmillanenglish.com, and you just come to the Zoom session. But we won't know you're watching to email you if you don't register. You've got all sorts of things coming in the goodie bag. I'm not going to go through them now. I'll go through them a bit later. I've got a question for you. We've got a website, sort of an ecosystem within our website dedicated to UDL, Universal Design for Learning. It's going to be up and running soon. It's not up and running yet. We're building it. We're creating the resources. You just saw a few of those resources in the goodie bag in that image just then. Go back. Can't go back. I'm not going to go back. But the website isn't live just yet. We're going to pull up a poll in a minute. We'll pull up a poll, and if you want to get an email from us to let you know when the website goes live, which is a UDL website, we'll give you the link, and there's going to be resources to help you sort of get started with UDL. Once it's live, do you want to receive an email from us to let you know about that? Gabby, if you don't mind bringing that up now, that'd be great. And then if you want to get that, you say, yes, please. If you don't want to get that, just say no, thanks, and we'll leave it there. I'll just give you a minute for that. So, Gabby, if you could just leave that poll there, please, just so people have got a bit of time to click what they want while I move on. And actually, I'm going to stop sharing. Louis, you are there. Would you mind sharing your screen, please? I know you're there, Louis. Don't pretend you're not. I know you're there.
I am here. I
You
just
are
need
there.
to have access and be allowed. There we go. Here it
Great.
comes.
Thank you, Louis. Louis is doubling as my assistant for this first segment. Thank you, Louis. Okay, so I'm going to just introduce the three speakers so that you know who you're going to be meeting today, and then I'll bow out and you guys can enjoy your lovely event with them. So, Louis Lord Nelson, PhD, 17 or more years shaping UDL globally. Louis Lord Nelson is a central voice within UDL, and we're absolutely privileged and honoured to have her here today. So glad that she could afford the time to take you through this and get you all invigorated about hopefully a journey that you're all going to start on today, your UDL journey. She's a former special education teacher, best-selling author, and UDL consultant. And she has hosted a 15-minute, sorry, UDL in 15 minutes podcast. Winner of CAST's inaugural Anne Meyer Design Award last year. Congratulations, Louis, on that. That's absolutely great. Um, and there we go. After Louis, you're going to be seeing Alison Posey. She has also been absolutely integral to the design of the framework for UDL. She's an international UDL leader, bridges neuroscience with education. She's the author of the book Unlearning and also Engage the Brain. She's also got an amazing degree. Some degrees are, I'm sure, absolutely wonderfully named, but this is the best one that I've ever seen. She's got a degree in mind, brain, and education from Harvard Graduate School of Education. Isn't that amazing? What a degree! And an avid hiker and a devoted mother. Marta Rosinska is our third speaker today. Marta is our sort of ELT specialist within ELT that we've got today. So she's coming at it from, I think, largely the audience here is ELT teachers. So she'll be bringing a really practical level of advice into her talk. She's head of English Language Centre in the University of Łódź. Anyone in Polish, please, I'm sorry about that pronunciation, but I do try. An MA in Linguistics, an advanced diploma in English Teaching Management, ELT, everything, basically. Social competencies trainer, UDL practitioner as well. She's become totally obsessed with this, and she's a long-term friend of Macmillan, and I knew that, so I couldn't not invite her to this event. So thank you for all of that. Right, before I go, a quick pop quiz. Question 1. Put the answers in the chat box. Who was given the birthday gift of driving a bulldozer and an excavator for her birthday? Who do you think? Was it Louis? Was it Alison? Or was it Marta? Now, I did tell you this. I told you this many times. The answer is, I'm only joking. I didn't tell you. This is a pure guess. Who do you think? Who here of those three was given a gift of driving a bulldozer and an excavator for her birthday? There's lots of Alison going on there. Okay, it was Louis. It was Louis. There we go. I'm guessing that's Louis. I can't actually see very clearly. I'm assuming that's Louis in the picture. Okay, question 2. Who has hiked around the tallest mountain in Europe? I know it's mad, isn't it? I'm not saying it's mad. Everyone's got their interests. I think construction is. I don't think I've heard that as like a hobby to like that sort of thing, but it's very cool. Second question: who has hiked around the tallest mountain in Europe? Who do you think? So we've got Louis, Alison, or Marta. It was Alison. Good stuff. And final question. Who is a diehard volleyball supporter? Who do we think? Diehard volleyball support. It's a bit of a given here. Louis was construction. Alison was the hiker. Marta is the diehard volleyball supporter. And there she is in all her glory. What an amazing picture. That to me looks like a Liverpool supporter or an Arsenal supporter in football in England. That's what that looks like to me. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to Louis. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience with my ramblings at the beginning. Louis, are you there?
I am here.
Hello.
And here comes the video. We hope. There we go.
There we go. Have a great session, everyone. Enjoy it, Louis. See you later.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Will, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. So Louis Lord Nelson here. I am from the States and I am typically in the East Coast time zone, but today I find myself in Vienna. And so my body is going through that little shift of time. So it's great to see all of you and the variety of places that you're logging in from. And some of you have completed long, long days in the classroom. Others of you are in the midst of a holiday and you took this time, and others are just you're whatever, you're here. So thank you. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate this. So Allison and Marta and I have put together this webinar to help you identify a way you can connect with the UDL framework and just some way that you can move forward. Now, I was paying attention to the chat and could see that many of you are not so familiar with universal design for learning. And then some of you are very familiar. So this is an example of variability, but I want to be sure to explain that this word, variability, it's really key in UDL. It's a vocabulary term. We all know what vocabulary is in lessons, but this one's really important because variability goes beyond the fact that we all learn differently. This is something that we know. What variability says is that we all learn differently, and that's based on context. What's going on around you and what's going on within you directly affects how you perceive, how you are learning, okay? And because of that, Marta and Allison and I worked to create a webinar that would honor the variability of this group. And so one of the ways that we hope to activate and connect with you is obviously through the chat, and Will's done a great job of getting us started there. You've already experienced a poll, so that's a different way. And then the little frog represents a game that you'll have an opportunity to engage with a little later if you so choose. And so you see the words flexible means, and that just means that we are doing our best within this environment to help you engage with the information, interact with the information in a lot of different ways, in the way that just feels comfortable for you. And then also it's because you might be otherwise occupied. For all I know, some of you have logged in while you're on a train or riding in a car, or hopefully you're not watching while you're driving, or you just have the sound on, or you're washing dishes, or whatever it is. And you aren't going to necessarily participate actively, like typing in the chat. It's fine. That is fine. A big key part of UDL is saying that learners need to engage with the learning in the ways that are best for them within that moment, because that's context. I also want to say, for those of you who are brand new to UDL, and you're like, I just don't even know universal design for learning. I'm going to name two other frameworks that are out there that I'm assuming if you're in education, you've probably heard of. One of them is Bloom's taxonomy and or Maslow's hierarchy. So just put a yes or a no in the chat if you've heard of one or both of those. So Bloom's taxonomy or Maslow's. Okay, they're all flowing in. Okay, I've just got a couple of no's. In both of those examples, and even for those of you who said no, a framework is something that just helps you center your thinking around a topic. And there's always a goal there. So like Maslow's hierarchy is a framework to help us understand the needs of an individual as they kind of go through life. That's the one that starts with you need, health and safety and food and just the basics of living, right? And getting all the way to the height of relationships and such. Bloom's taxonomy is where there was a determined kind of system, I don't want to say leveling, of kind of types of learning that it help engage our learners' brains more and more and more. But a framework doesn't tell you exactly what steps to take, okay? That is not what a framework is. And UDL is the same thing. UDL provides you with a lot of information, and then you, as the educator, you as the designer, the term that we use, are making choices based on what's in that framework. Okay. So I'll just leave it there, but that gives you a taste. We're talking about a framework. All right. So as Allison and Marta and I share our sections, we're going to start with what our origin story is, kind of how we came into UDL, and that'll help us set the basis for our topic. And then we're all going to talk about, from educators' point of view, we hear a lot of, yeah, but for maybe reasons why UDL, I don't know, people have a reaction that maybe it wouldn't work for them, or they want to make these changes, but, okay, so we're coming in from that point of view. All right, so I am going to be talking about the UDL mindsets, as Will said, which, that's definitely a higher level, but it's a way for you to think about what you're already doing to get you prepared to go into that framework more deeply. All right, so here we go. Back in 2007, I was hired as an executive director of a disability organization. And when I walked into the office on the first day, there was a bookshelf full of these books, Teaching Every Student in the Digital Age. There were like 60 copies. And I thought, if there are 60 copies of a book, I probably should read it. It's probably important, don't you think? Well, that was my introduction, and I was hooked immediately. And reason being that this book, which is now out of print, actually, because UDL has gone through several iterations. But what this did was it really emphasized why we need to shift our teaching. And it's because of how the brain learns. The brain is always learning, always, always, always learning. But in this book, CAST was doing the best job they knew how to at that moment to communicate why we needed to change how we were teaching. Also on this screen, you can see an arrow going to a multicolored box, at green and purple and blue. Well, that's an image of what we call the UDL guidelines. I don't have all the words in there on purpose. But this book came out even before CAST had those guidelines created. So when I came into the world of UDL, we didn't have those guidelines yet, but we were working to help educators adopt an understanding of, again, how the brain works when learning and better ways that we could connect our learners to learning. Well, as I learned more and more about universal design for learning, and as this as this graphic organizer came out, I felt that people were kind of detaching themselves from that original piece of knowledge. And so that's what drove me to work toward what I call the UDL gears. But before we dive into that, what I'd like for you to do is think about two different sunsets. So 2 different days, I don't care how far apart they are, but 2 different sunsets. Just take a minute. I didn't give you a minute, but I'm pretty sure you came up with 2 sunsets. All right. Now here's my question. Did the 2 sunsets look identical? Put in the chat, yes or no. Did they look identical? Lots of no's flowing in. Never. All right, so it's good. I'm actually glad to hear that and see that. All right, we've got a few yeses. That's okay. That's okay. But what we're talking about here is when the sun sets, right? It's because the earth has turned, it's rotated. And we know there's the axis, and that moves around a little bit. But every single day, the sun sets. The same process happens. The sun goes down, but it looks different. And usually, so some of you are saying yes, And in an odd way, maybe it could happen, but we know that like weather and geography really make this change and be different each time. So if you're looking out in the ocean, there's clouds, right? If you're in the mountains, maybe there's fog, maybe there's not. If you're looking across a meadow, you're going to have the breezes. I mean, all these different things, right? But here's the other part. A sunset looks different because of how you're interacting in that moment. Let me give you an example. Maybe you're hanging out with somebody on that at that first sunset, and you're just deeply in love. You're just feeling so good in the moment. It affects how that sunset looks. Maybe the next time you see the sunset, and it could potentially kind of be similar, but you're by yourself and you're starving. You're just so hungry. You're so hungry. That's going to affect how that sunset looks to you. So that's context. Now, remember when I talked about variability in the beginning? Yeah, we all learn differently because learning is dramatically affected by the context. So I like to use the sunset as an example as to why when you're using this framework, and again, I don't have all the words on this screen, it just can get a little overwhelming when you see the framework with all the words. But how you use the information that's on this piece of paper will change each time. Let's pretend you decide to use the exact same things that are on this piece of paper in 2 different classes. It's going to be different. It's going to be different because the context has changed. Time has moved forward. The students have changed the way they're interacting. I'm just getting you into the flow of it. So I'm hoping that you're all coming along with me. All right. So because of this and because of my desire to really hit this point home, I spent time going through the literature, and universal design for learning has been adopted so many places around the world. So like I saw was at least one person from Singapore. So I spent 5 years coming over to Singapore and working with the Ministry of Education happened to be in the special education division at that time, but then I know that the general education division, they've also been talking about this. So anyway, so whether I've been in Singapore or Uganda or Canada, or of course in the US or in Mexico or Malawi or Cambodia, all of these different places are now talking about UDL, and there are lots of people publishing, writing about UDL. So I looked in as many places as I could. And what I found was that people talked about mindsets, the way we think, the skills that educators use when they're applying it, and then their practices. And the way I view this is these are all like gears. So on your screen on the left, there's a GIF, and it's gears like the inside of a watch, but you have little tines that fit together in a gear. And that's what keeps the simple machine working. Well, if one of those tines is missing, the machine still works, but not as effectively and not as efficiently. And that's the way I think about the mindsets, the skills, and the practices, along with the guidelines. That when we have all of these different things in place, it's gonna flow really a lot better. All right, so I see a number of people that aren't able to see the presentation at the moment. I'm going to continue moving forward because I know this is being recorded. So hopefully when you all receive the recording, you'll be able to go back to this point and time in here, which we're maybe 10 minutes in. All right. So, and then also I'll be putting some information in the chat. So for those of you who can't see really well, you'll be able to interact with this next part. Okay, so I've got 2 different ways for you to learn about the mindsets. I've got a game that you can play, and then I also have an individual paper, PDF, that you'll be able to access. Now, here's the deal. I'm also going to ask you to think about 4 different questions as you either play the game or you just want to read the mindsets. Because some people are like, I don't want to play a game. That's fine. That's fine. Flexible means I want to give you different opportunities. So I want you to think about, if educators in your past, did you feel like they used these mindsets? And then what did they do that demonstrated that to you? How did that mindset driven action benefit you? And then which mindsets drive your actions? So like I said, I'm going to be putting into the chat links to let you access the game and or the PDF. Also, if you can see the screen, you can also use the QR code that's there if you'd like, or type in those links. So here we go. I'm going to drop the information into the chat right now. I'm going to give you 10 minutes to explore these, either one of those resources. In addition, you can also go out to Just Plain the Gears. Well, I think the PDF gives you access to the gears, and there are lots of people who have done translations of these for me, lots of colleagues around the world. So before I get going on that, I just want to let you know. So I have the gears in Japanese and Turkish, friends from Germany, friends from Belgium, Malawi, Japan. Oh, I said Japan already. Algeria, Uganda, Cambodia, Korea, and Chile have all done translations for me. So you'll be able to find these also in languages. So let me go back over here. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. So for 10 minutes, love for you to dig in. You see the gears image on the web page I sent above, not the slides, unfortunately. Let's see. Well, I'm going to start the timer.
Sorry, Louis, I was just saying because there was someone who couldn't quite see the gears, and I was just sending them to the page on your website where you can see the gears really clearly.
Oh, okay. Lovely. Thank you. All right, I'm posting this once again. I'm going to darken my screen, the video of me and my sound, just so you can have time, but feel free to chat me up and I respond. We're going to give about 2 minutes left for our friends who are still accessing the game, might be playing it a little bit more. So remember, start thinking about those questions. Maybe you had a teacher in your past and you can think, wow, I think they had one of these mindsets. Think about how that affected you. Or did any of those really resound with you? Did they have deep meaning for you? So put that kind of thought into the chat as we wait for all of our friends to have access to the game or to the PDF. So Mary Cruz, I also have a memory from fourth grade of a teacher that really resounded in with some of these mindsets. A little over a minute to go. All right, as the clock continues to count down, I just want to express that you'll always have access to this game. You can come back into this webinar and find this game again. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, my frog went to the wrong lily pad, it's really okay. It's a low, it's not a high stress game. And then also you have access to the PDF, which lists all of them out for you. So wonderful. Okay, and that's the lovely end of that. Okay, so the link again, I'll just put that in the chat and then I'm going to move forward. Okay, so really quickly, what I want to do is the yeah buts. So for example, one of those mindsets is I have high expectations for every learner. And then like in a second, like the yeah, but they don't do the work. Well, one of the things we think about in UDL, that framework, those words that I told you about that are in the guidelines, one of the options would help you think about how do I engage them a little differently. And so here's an example of an AI super prompt. So some of you have not used AI at all, and that is okay. A super prompt is just it's kind of a big prompt that allows you to personalize things. And I've given you an example here. I'm not going to read through it because just in a minute, you're going to have the ability to look at an example of the super prompt filled in. And oh, I forgot to go back and switch this slide because it says I'm teaching Greek literature to my grade 10 learners. We're in Gloucestershire. It shouldn't say English, it should say England. But this is an example of how you can use, as you've learned about UDL and the guidelines a little bit better, more specifics about UDL to help you design. So I just want to give you 1 minute. I know it's going to sound really short, but I'm putting into the chat a link to that same page, and you're going to open up what's called a sample from Claude. This lets you see how AI could help you think about other ways to encourage your students to engage with the learning a little bit better, okay? And why do we do this? Well, it's because we want to help them find relevance in what's being taught. If they're being taught about Greek literature, might not be so effective for them. So this says 2 minutes. I'm just going to give you about a minute to look at that information. So go ahead, go out there, open up that sample. and see what kind of responses AI gave me. All right. As I promised, I just want you to have access to that document so later on you could look at that too and think about other ways that you could, how AI, sorry, can help you think of other ways to connect with your learners. For those of you who are having a small screen issue, the stuff in the green box, that's okay. It just gets into more of the kind of hairy details. You're going to learn more about that stuff from Allison and from Marta. So have no fear. We will help you go through this. All right. And last but not least, another example, I believe that every learner should learn alongside their peers, but my school has separate classrooms for students with disabilities. So if you are working from a place of the mindsets, even if you know nothing about what's inside of those guidelines, if you're working from those mindsets, you're going to be flowing through and connecting better with the ways of lesson planning, of setting up your environment, the ways that you teach, so that you'll make things more accessible for all learners. This takes time, it takes effort, and you just have to kind of start doing some investigation of your own mindsets. Now, the other thing I want to point out is we don't wait until our students are ready. I've worked in schools where it was full inclusion. I've worked in schools where it was separate, like in this example. We do not ever want to have a readiness model where we're preparing students to come in. That's not the job. The job is to shift the environment, the way that we're teaching, the way we design our environments. That's what UDL is all about. It's about helping us discover ways that we can change how we're teaching and the way we design our environments. So, like I said, I'm like starting this game off for you, and Allison and Marta are going to keep moving this forward for you. So, as I close out, choose one of these questions that you would like to respond to in the chat. What's one mindset shift that resonated most with you today and why? Which of these mindsets feel most natural to you already? Which feels like the biggest stretch, or what surprised you most? So I'm going to go ahead and close out as you are bringing in your ideas in the chat. So as I said, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I would love to meet all of you someday. But if not, you have access to my website now. You feel free to go through there and look at whatever you would like. I'm going to go ahead, close down my camera and close down my share so that Allison can come in. Thank you so very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm letting all the love from Louie continue. Amazing. I feel so lucky to get to share today with such wonderful colleagues. Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Posey, and It's so nice to be with you all today. I am here on the East Coast of the United States, just outside of Boston. I'm seeing folks from all around the world. It's just amazing. I can't even tell you, amazing to get to all be here together. So I'm going to continue a little bit of what Louie was sharing. I'm going to tell you a couple stories and invite some collaboration as we continue to think about how we design for all learners. I do want to make sure if I could just do a quick check. Are you all able to see my screen? I'm not seeing my screen. Um, yes, okay, you all are amazing. Thank you so much. So I know Louie was sharing with you all about mindsets, and that is going to lead me to talk about one of my favorite things, which is the learning brain. And my story about how I came to Universal Design for Learning, UDL, is that I was a science teacher. I taught high school science for those of you who teach science. Hello. And one year I had a student who I still think about. You know how you have those students who just kind of stick with you for years and years. So, oh, I see some people already here. Another Allison from Boston. Hello. So I had this student who had read the entire textbook, and we had a college level textbook. He read the entire textbook in the first couple weeks of class. And at first, I didn't really believe him. And then we would talk about things and he would ask questions. And I would think, oh my goodness, he really read the textbook and he is really thinking about these deep ideas. But he never turned in assignments. And when I got his first test, it was completely blank. And it just really bothered me because I knew he knew all of this information, but he wasn't showing it, right? He wasn't sharing it on the tests. And then I found out later from his parent that he was failing several of his classes. He was very depressed and was at risk of dropping out of high school. And it just really broke my heart because I didn't know it, right? I didn't see it as his educator, as his teacher. So I decided to go back to school. I went to graduate school, as Will shared at the very beginning, in an amazing program called Mind, Brain, and Education, where I really tried to think about how the neuroscience could help us inform our instructional practice as teachers. And that's where I learned about universal design for learning. And I have been hooked ever since. That has been over 14 years now. And here we are today talking about universal design for learning. So I'm going to bring some brain science. I'm going to bring some stories. And I want to start with a question for you all. And that is, what do brains and shoes and even UDL have in common? And I'll let you take just a few moments to think about shoes, brains, and UDL. Oh my gosh, some of you right away are saying some great things. Variety, laces, left and right, being in someone's shoes. Oh, you all are amazing. These are great answers. They're in use. They are different and colorful. Yes. Diversity, models, and styles. Oh my gosh, you all are amazing. Oh, someone said something. Okay. Yes, these are so good. These are so good. So now I have not met, I don't think I've met any of you. Maybe I have, but yes, many of you are getting exactly to the point. And I'm going to guess we don't wear the same size shoe. I have a tiny shoe. I have a little tiny size 6 in the US, size 36 in other shoe sizes, depending on how you label your shoes. And I were to imagine, I'm the hiker, as you all remember from the intros. If we were to go hiking and I'm going to get us shoes, so we all have hiking shoes to go hiking, I wouldn't get us the same size shoe, right? I'm just gonna, I've never met you. Maybe we all have a small size 36 shoe, but if you want to even put your shoe size in the chat, we might start to see there's some variability in our shoe sizes, right? Oh, we have another 36. We have a couple small feet. Some 43s. Yes, all different sizes, right? Here is variability in our shoe size. And we see the differences in our feet, right? I mean, I'm not going to ask us all to hold up our feet, but we would be able to very easily, we look around, we can see the differences in our feet. So we design different size shoes. But it's harder to see our brains, right? They're enclosed in our skulls and we have, glasses and hair and whatever, hats. We can't see our brains. but the variability is there. And I worry that often we don't recognize the variability in our brains, and we start to make an assumption that students are going to do things in the same way at more or less the same time. And the thing is, the thing that neuroscience over and over and over again, in almost every article you find about brain science, is there is variability. Each brain is as unique as our fingerprints, and I really like this one. Each brain is as unique as snowflakes. As we start to come into winter here in the northern hemisphere, I'm starting to think more and more about snow. Each brain is as unique as a snowflake, and our brains will grow and change based on how we're interacting with the environments. But so often in our schools, we design our lesson goals, our assessments, the materials we use in the same way. And we have students doing the same thing at the same time. And it would be like getting the same size shoe to go on a hike and then being surprised that it just isn't very comfortable or working for very many of us, right? So we know our brains are different as our foot sizes. And so this is where UDL comes in. UDL shoes and brains, they're all about variability. Many of you noted that, and actually many of you noted it in very beautiful ways. And UDL is a tool that's going to help us pick out the right size shoe or pick out and design the lesson, the goal, the materials, the assessments without even having to meet our students. UDL is going to help us anticipate the variability of our learners so that then when we meet our students, they're able to work with us and we're able to even be more intentional in the way that we design to make sure their brains get what they need to do these high level goals that we have. And so to get at that, so thank you for engaging me and indulging me a little bit in that analogy of shoes and brains. I know it's a little silly, but that's a really helpful way that I think about, we don't always see that variability in our brains. And if we did, oh my gosh, we would design so differently, right? So I'm going to jump here into a story and thank you all for some of the little feedback and I'm seeing the hearts and the things flying. So I very much appreciate those reactions. I'm going to share a story about a student that I hope will inspire you to maybe think about one of your own students, maybe think about your own experience in school, maybe even think about if you have children, one of your own children or neighbors or nieces or nephews. So Maya is a 7-year-old girl. She has 2 dogs and several cats. She loves, loves, loves her pets. She's super sensitive. She's an amazing swimmer, and she loves to tell imaginative stories. And I have an image on the slide here of Maya. She has gunk all over her hands. She's very tactile. She loves to, get into the Play-Doh and muck about in the mud. And so she has a lot of energy, but she hates going to school. She hates it. And she's often a little teary and quiet when she's dropped off. And during school, the teacher often gets frustrated because she doesn't always follow directions. She's often daydreaming. Maybe she's daydreaming about those stories she's telling, or her pets, or her swimming. And the teacher also will get frustrated because she'll often come over and tug on the teacher's sleeve and say, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? And that, gets a little exhausting when you have a lot of students and you have a lot of things going on. And she's a mover. This girl, she likes to move around even when she should sit still. So like during reading time or direct instruction, she is moving around. Oh my gosh. And I love this comment in the chat. I may have been Maya once. Yes, that completely resonates with me too, right? So she's a mover. And so that's really, that can be really frustrating for other students in the classroom and for the teacher. But she recently got in trouble actually for biting another student, which just, is not okay, right? We have to draw lines and boundaries. And so they had to have a meeting with the family to just learn a little more and see how we could, address the situation. And the teachers learned, something even more disheartening is that Maya tends to not be invited to play dates or birthday parties outside of school. She just really isn't having a whole lot of friends. And she's internalizing that she's the problem at school and not very many people like her. And so, yeah, some of you are noting, that you know students like Maya. So I just invite you to imagine for a moment you're Maya's teacher and you're thinking about all of this. What are some strategies that you might do to try to get into this situation? And I'll give you, some of you have already started adding ideas. So, what are some ideas we can use for Maya? I love this using pets as themes, videos. Oh, I don't know what TPR are, and many of you are noting TPR. Music, love it. Lots of fun ideas, right? Oh, thank you. Total physical response. Oh my goodness, yes. And for those of you who need that, please move around now during this session. Writing poems, being a teacher herself, dance, role playing. Oh, these are beautiful answers. Yes, group work. Oh, more TPR. I love it. Storytelling. Sensory games. This is wonderful. So here, keep the ideas coming. And so here are a couple ideas that these teachers did. Again, there's no right or wrong. These are just some ideas. You can see if any resonate, any are things you do, but they gave her incentives like stickers to use. There's stickers she could get at the end of the day if her behavior was good. She was given her own seat in the back of the room so she could move around and not distract others. They gave her a feelings journal that she could wear around her neck to write down how she was feeling to try to get her to still, if you have anger or frustration, you often have to do something with that energy. So they gave her a journal to write in. And this little page of it shows words like mad, angry, sad, not happy. It just kind of breaks your heart. But they were, again, trying to get her to be more productive with her feelings by taking a more productive action with the journal. They made a calm down area in the room where she could go if she needed. And there's an image of this on the slide. It's basically a 3-panel poster made out of just cardboard. And it had pictures, kind of cartoon pictures of yoga moves and breathing activities and feeling words that she could use. And they gave her a visual schedule to try to help her know what is coming next, right? So the teachers were optimistic, and these were words that they used, that she can get better with this support, that she can get better. And I'm just going to invite you to reflect for a moment about what resonates about this story, what you're wondering about this story, and what is UDL about this example, or what's maybe not UDL about this example? There are Mayas in every class, aren't there? And many of you are noting, I don't like that she can get better. Yes. Thank you for picking up on that. So it's hard to say a simple yes or no about UDL, right? UDL is a mindset, as Louie was sharing, and I know Marta will also talk about with you all. UDL is a mindset, and it's a mindset that frames barriers in the environment, not in the student. So just the fact that it was phrased as like Maya has the problem, right? She did turn out to have ADHD when she was tested. Many of you are not surprised to hear that. But the framing of Maya being the problem is not UDL, right? With UDL, we start thinking about where are barriers in the environment that we can reduce? Because Maya brings variability to the classroom, right? All this variability. We can anticipate variability in emotion, variability in attention, variability in our movement, right? And the energy that we have. And from day to day, from moment to moment, it's going to differ. So we know there's going to be this variability. So instead of thinking about what can we do to help Maya, UDL is going to shift it, right? UDL is going to shift it to think about how can we change the classroom? How can we change the environment, right? And so a lot of the strategies we might use are still the same, but we're not going to think about those in terms of, oh, we'll give them to a student once a problem happens. We instead, with UDL, think about, we know there's going to be this variability. How can we design from the beginning, maybe with flexible seating, maybe with visual schedules, maybe with having quiet spaces or movement spaces in the room, maybe opportunities to self-reflect on how we did during a day. And we don't just make these options for one student, but we open them up for any student to be able to use as they need, right, in the environment. And yes, and we want to make sure that we're being respectful of each other as we're doing some of these different things. So as I might need to move a little and stretch, I also don't want to disrupt my neighbor who might be needing more quiet time, right? So when we have classrooms that are designed for variability and students aren't always doing the same thing at the same time, we'll need to establish some cultural norms, right? To make sure that we're able to continue to do the learning, but recognize that we're going to do them in slightly different ways. So yes, we're shifting the perspective, very well shared in the chat, from one student to thinking about the design of the environment. And I know many of you aren't going to want to do the options I suggested. And with UDL, you don't have to do all these things. Sometimes, and a lot of times, just one option is enough, right? Just a +1, we sometimes call it. But what's UDL about classrooms and lessons is this approach of thinking about the design for flexibility from the beginning to get to the goals of the lesson. And I will tell you the secret about UDL is in the goals. And so goals will drive the different decisions that you end up making, right? And so we can start to use UDL to spark ideas to help us design for variability in our classrooms, in the materials we're using, in the methods we're using. And so UDL, you never want to do all of these things, but you can do a +1. And so if you have a class of over 30, right, you might think of one thing. Where is your biggest pinch point? Where is the thing that's most challenging? If you have a class that's a lot of energy, maybe the thing you go after is flexible spaces for movement, right? So this is again where UDL isn't going to be one thing, but it's going to be reducing barriers depending on your context. And I know Louis talked a little bit about how important that context is. So we hope these guidelines, and again, we don't want these, the goal right now is not for you to read all of these UDL guidelines, but again, just to see that this is the graphic organizer that's used in UDL to help spark ideas for what we might do in our classrooms to help reduce barriers and support that variability of learners. And I'll give you an example, another example here in a moment. But sometimes this UDL approach may seem like it's not too different from what we are already doing, right? We already add an option for students. We do that already. But after years and years of applying universal design for learning with educators around the world, I've actually found that this unlearning, we actually have to unlearn some of our tried and true practices in order to truly apply UDL. So my colleague Katie Novak and I developed this unlearning cycle. We actually wrote a whole book about it because we had so much, we ended up having so much thinking about the process used to apply UDL into your context. And we just hope it's a helpful tool, again, to give us a common language and common process to think about the different ways that we take our tried and true practices, those things we always do as educators, and those things that we always do as educators, and just reflect on how we might shift the design slightly, right? Just maybe a +1 in order to, again, get to those high expectations and goals. And so, yes, to truly apply UDL, we often have to unlearn some of those tried and true practices. So you might think about, oh yes, I know I don't actually want you all to read all the words in the cycle. That's beyond the scope of this webinar. And I've actually put all the steps in the bullets. So the bullets are saying what's in the cycle. So you don't have to worry about trying to read those tiny things. I've given you two representations of the information. I'm going to say it. It's in the bullets, and yeah, you can definitely check out the unlearning cycle and other times if you want to. But here they are. Here are the steps. So the first thing you want to do is think of one of your tried and true practices. Maybe it's how you assign homework, or how you do reading stations, or how you call on students. So I thought we could just do a really simple example today and think about how, I'll just think about my own practice, how I call on students. Often I will say something out loud verbally, and students can raise their hand, and then I call on them and they say the answer. So that's my tried and true. Then I want to think about the goal of that tried and true practice. What am I actually trying to do in that moment? Yes, it's to get students to participate. It's to get students to know the right answer. So we want to get really clear on the goal. So let's just say my goal for a class, for calling on students, is to try to get students to participate. I really want students to participate in class. I'm going to make that my goal. Then we can start to anticipate some of the variability. Some students are going to love to share verbally. They're going to raise their hand a lot, even if they don't know the answer, right? Other students might process information a little bit slower and not raise their hand as quickly. Some students might not ever really want to participate verbally for whatever reason. And that's where we get at variability, right? So we think of our tried and true technique. We really identify the goal of what we're doing. And then we recognize there's going to be this variability, right? The different ways. Some of you love to participate in the chat. Some of you maybe didn't. Again, you're thinking about the goal. So then this is where we get to UDL. UDL, we can get those UDL guidelines out, and we can start thinking about ways that we can design for engagement. Maybe we have students turn and talk. Then we have more students participating at a time, and I'm getting, a little more participation. Maybe we could zoom into the UDL guidelines on action and expression and think even more about, maybe students could write their ideas on a piece of paper and they don't even have to say it verbally. Maybe they could have a little chalkboard that they could write together with a partner, right? Then I'm getting more at participation because I'm allowing more than one way for students to participate. And maybe they still can raise their hand. I just could provide one other way for them to participate. We'll still hold those high expectations for all learners and give them some agency to get to make a choice in how they participate. So this is a little more aligned to UDL, where you know the goal, you anticipate the variability that we're all going to have, especially when you have 30 plus more students, right? You know you're going to have that variability. And then you start with that engagement. What might be one little thing we could do to make this thing a little more flexible, but really get at that high level goal? And I'm telling you, it can feel a little scary, because sometimes we have done these things. Like the way I did class participation was how I had done it for years. And so to start shifting it felt different for me, and it felt different for the students. But what I started to observe in terms of student participation changed my approach, right? It made me know this is worth doing. So keep grounding in what you're observing in your students. Are you getting the outcomes you want? Are you getting more of the learning that you want? Was I getting more of the participation I want? Then that's the data you use to help really be reflective about your instructional practices and that design. So we promised that we would give you a yeah, but moment. And one of the yeah, buts that I hear a lot of times when I'm sharing about UDL is that it sounds like it might take a lot more time to design this way. And honestly, the answer is yes. It will take more time. Most of the time, it takes a little more time to design and add an option in on the front end. Like it would take me a little more time to order all the different shoe sizes instead of just saying, I want all of this one size shoe. It's going to take a little more time on the front end. But what we found, again, and this is why I'm still in this work over 15 years later, is that when it's planned, the lesson moves and more students have what they need from the very beginning. And yes, I'm seeing there that oh, there was a question I thought and I am seeing here, some students still, you still, there's no guarantee with UDL that you're going to get every student all the time. I wish I had a magic tool for that, but I've found with UDL and this approach, again, kind of using that unlearning cycle of thinking about the tried and true practice, the true goal of it, anticipating the variability, and then really going after that engagement and some flexibility, is that we do start to reach a little more of the students, right? And that's worth it. It's totally worth it. It starts to get contagious. So I know that it is time to bring my colleague Marta on, but I do want to give you a chance to just reflect for a moment on what we shared today, what you let me share with you today. So maybe you want to think about one way you could design for variability. We talked about that story of Maya and some ideas to just, again, get the classroom, get your materials ready for the variability of students. Maybe you want to think about one of your tried and true teaching practices. Like I thought about student participation and the way I do that. Maybe you want to think about one of your teaching practices. Or maybe you just want to go back and think about shoes and brains and variability and UDL, and something with that maybe resonated. So I'll give you a moment to just choose one of the following to respond to. What's a way you could design or think about a teaching practice or something that resonated? And I love this comment in the chat. It takes time, but the rewards are worth it. That's just so beautifully shared. Thank you for noting that. I can't wait to see your ideas in the chat here. Oh, I'm glad that the participation idea resonated. Yes, and you can think outside of the box. Sometimes it's just a little +1. Yes, we want to walk far in the shoes. That is beautiful. Yes. It takes time and then it does turn into a routine. Variety. Yes, using the songs and poems in different ways to express. I agree. Turn and talks are so powerful. You all, thank you so much for your time today. I'm just so honored to get to share a little story, share my story about UDL, share a story about a student in a real classroom here in the Boston area. And thank you all so much for your time. I'm so happy to introduce my colleague Marta. Hello. And I will turn it over to you. You all have a great time with her. And thank you so much for all your time. I appreciate you each.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, I hope you're fine, guys. You've been through 2 sessions, hearing a lot about UDL, and I hope you like the idea. I also hope that by now you actually feel that you're doing a lot of UDL in your classrooms. Is this right? That a lot of the ideas and practices are also part of your everyday life and reality in classrooms? We all have experience, we're clever people, so I guess some of this we worked out by now. Still, there's always scope for improvement, and I'll be talking about how to implement UDL into your ELT classroom. So welcome, thank you for joining us, thank you for coming and being here with us. Okay, so yes, I come from Poland, from the place called Łódź. It used to be the second largest city in Poland. Now I think it's unfortunately the fourth. It's not far from Warsaw. And this is where I teach. I teach a lot of youngsters, teenagers, and adults as well. I teach for a school, which is part of the university. And this is also where I do a lot of teacher training. And I'm very happy to be able to share my ideas of the last 32 years with you. One of my biggest passions in education is what you can see in front of you on the slide. How to make my teaching as enjoyable as possible without putting in too much effort. I hope you understand, being teachers yourselves. It's all about introducing small adjustments for big impact. It's just fundamental to what I do in education. We're all very busy, aren't we? We have a lot on our plate. So we need solutions which work, which are effective, but perhaps not overly time consuming and effortful. So that's me, basically. Now, my story of how I started with UDL is actually pretty selfish, shall we say. You can see on the left a photograph. It shows my kids. I don't often share my kids with anyone. In this respect, I can be awfully private, but I'm sharing this with you because I want to ask you to look at this wonderful lady on the right. Her name is Olivia, and she's my daughter. She's almost 25 now. But when she went to school, she had lots of problems adjusting and actually learning. And originally, we all think it's because of the student. Yes, the student is lazy, perhaps unintelligent, perhaps incapable, and you end up blaming even your own kids for not being able to learn. Luckily, being a teacher, I figured out that it wasn't just her, it was the way she was taught, or perhaps the way she was prevented from learning things. She quickly developed a passion for dancing. She was 5 when she took up dancing. And you could see that the best way she could learn was through movement. She was a very kinetic type of a learner. So she needed to walk about the classroom. She needed to recite things, poems aloud. She was much better at presenting things in front of the class than taking written tests. So obviously it took quite a while for her to understand what was wrong with her. And for me as a mother, to actually help her out. And this made me think perhaps that if my own daughter has issues like this, perhaps in my own classroom, there are students that I somehow had missed and had not realized that they were having the same type of problems. And this actually struck me and I thought, perhaps it's high time I changed myself. So the story is actually a little selfish from coming from my family. And the problems we all had when she was young. By now, she's been very successful and fantastic, and she's always been like this. But we needed to work out how to teach her. And I'm sure you have students like this in your class, where you need to offer more choice than standard education usually tells us to. Okay, right. This is one of the reasons why UDL came to me, or ideas like UDL came to me as a possible type of rescue. Okay, so why might this matter to me? Why might it matter to people around me? And why might it matter to the world? I don't know, guys, if you use something called Harvard Project Zero, and it's like a wonderful web page, a site where you can find lots of thinking routines, questions which help you think, that lead you to reflection, etc. And one of the tasks I often use on myself and use with my learners is called the 3 whys. And when I thought about UDL, it also struck me that I was sort of selfish in 2 ways, because one thing was my daughter, and the other one was that I realized that the more comfortable I make my students to be, if you know what I mean, the more comfortable I get as a teacher. The more I can work on students' engagement, the more they work with me rather than against me. So by helping the students, I was actually making my job much easier. And perhaps I was actually less prone to teachers' burnout. So this matters to me because it made my life easier. It mattered to people around me because you suddenly see that these students smile more often, that they come to class more willingly, that they want to cooperate, that you can see that trust developing, yes? And it's fantastic for us teachers, isn't it? Yes, that you can see that kind of rapport between you and the class. This is what actually I'm driven by, I think, as a teacher. And finally, why might it matter to the world? Well, I'm making, hopefully, some humans even better. Yes, I give them confidence, and this is tremendously important to me to have this sort of mission of making people as happy, as confident as possible. So this is my story of UDL, both my family and also me wanting to be more comfortable with my students and helping them actually learn, which is what we do in this profession. Okay, guys, let's move on. Now, I tend to, I need like a philosophy in life of some kind that I can follow, that I can believe in, that sort of drives me forward. And one of my philosophies, I think I have 3 of them, is think big and start small, which basically means that you look at the concept as big as UDL, and you think, ooh, that's a lot. It's a lot to take in, a lot to implement. So you start small. You begin by implementing small ideas, experimenting. I'm an experimenter, experimenting with ideas, see what works for you and your students, yes, and how can you possibly put this all together. And over the last few years, I have gathered a lot of activities that actually now, you think about my lesson, UDL is the driving principle behind it, the way I design lessons. I'll show you examples. So think big concept in your head, for example, in this case, UDL, and think about small steps you can take to introduce it to your classroom. This session is not particularly long, so I have decided to focus on some issues that I associate with UDL. As you can see, it's engagement, voice and choice, and empathy. Now, engagement, as I keep saying, is not about keeping students busy. So it's not the fact that they do something every 5 minutes. It's engaging students, engaging on a very, not just cognitive level, but also very emotional and social level, where students can relate to what happens in class in more than one way, when they feel comfortable, where this variability that you've been hearing about is actually a key concept here. Voice and choice, I love when my students can express themselves, share themselves with other students, and when they have the choice. And choice is something that has been built into my teaching now for years, and when I design lessons, there has to be choice. Examples coming up. And finally, obviously, empathy, because without this profession does not exist. And it's not just because you show empathy, you also teach how the students can show empathy to each other, yes, within the group that they actually work. So these 3 concepts, okay? Now, think big, start small, literally small. I want to just mention very briefly a new course book by Macmillan called Share. It's a wonderful name, don't you think? As you can see, it's for young kids, children. And it's all about teaching them, obviously, English, because that's what we do, but also teaching them how to function better emotionally and socially. Have a look at the amount of activities, the number of activities where students, as young as probably what, as you can see, can learn how to share, how to compare cultures, how to talk about the emotions, etc. So I think the earlier we start teaching them how to develop this inclusive mindset, actually, the better. And UDL is about having and developing an inclusive mindset. So look it up. It's certainly worth your while to see how this can be done with our little ones. Okay. Right. Now, one thing that you probably don't know about me, you may have learned before that I love volleyball, and I love it. But when I was a kid, I actually did basketball for many years, 12 years. And in basketball, when the coach sees that the team is not doing very well, something is happening, the coach says, okay, stop, you know, we need to talk, we need to talk. And this is what I have, as a teacher, decided to use with my own learners. And I think UDL teaches you patience, but also teaches you how to pause during your class, how to make pauses to allow for more than just teaching the language, basically. Now, throughout my lessons, I call them journeys, or sometimes like a road trip, I stop a few times. If my lesson is short, 45 minutes, I'll pause twice. I'll tell you why I pause in a minute. If my lesson is 90 minutes long, I pause more than twice, perhaps, for certain reasons. So pausing, stopping, not rushing, not hurrying up all the time to cover the curriculum is definitely part of UDL. And it's just wonderful to be able to pause and get to know the students better. Okay, right. In the chat box, I'd like you to have a look. Well, no, I'd like you to have a look at the photos, and in the chat box, tell me how you feeling today, which animal, which face is about you today. Are you tired, happy, excited, fed up? You have had enough. Or perhaps on the other hand, you might be super excited about something, happy, looking forward to the rest of the day or evening, depending where you are. Right, okay, you see, Advancing Learning, which is a wonderful title for this campaign or this series of workshops. You cannot advance learning without understanding how people work, how our brains work, how our emotions work. Advancing learning, number one, as I understand it these days, is about removing barriers of all kinds. And these are not just barriers in the classroom that I think Alison was referring to. It's also removing emotional barriers, finding out how your students feel. A very short anecdote from my own teaching life. It was like quite a few years ago. I was teaching present perfect, and I thought my lesson was actually perfect. And there was this one girl who was totally unfocused, and she was texting someone on the phone. And after a few minutes, I just went up and I said, what can I do to help you focus? And she just yelled at me, really, at the top of her voice, and she said, my boyfriend has just broken up with me. I don't care about your present perfect. And it's just, you look at this girl and you think, oh, the same happened to me when I was your age. And said, oh, really? It really feels horrible, doesn't it? Yes. And this taught me to start every lesson by asking my students how they feel. So they choose, there are plenty of photos like these online. They can be dogs, cats, I don't know, seals, birds, anything. It's just easy. You just put in animal photos, feelings, and you get lots of stuff like this. So I try to change every lesson. And it's something that is fundamental to UDL as well. You have to know who you teach, and not just know their names, but also know their emotional states. And when students indicate that they feel, I don't know, furious, angry, unhappy, upset, perhaps it will make me stop from asking them too many questions during the class, yes, giving them space, etc. So this is one of the pauses that I make sure I have. That's how I start my lesson. I want to know how you are today, guys. Yeah, so that's fairly important. Another time when I pause is usually after 20 minutes, depending on how long my lesson is on this particular day. 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. And we try to do these brain breaks. I'm sure you know them. I'm sure you use them as well. We often use activities which, again, I go through stuff online and find stuff like this, perhaps. We use online dice. I also like dice like real dice. So this is my favorite, red one. I hope you like red as a color. So when I see that the students are wilting, there's sort of lack of enthusiasm, you look at, think, okay, let's have a brain break, okay? And obviously some students, neurodivergent students, for example, they need more frequent breaks, but they don't really have to know that the break you're just making is especially for them. That's what I like about UDL. It's kind of seamless. It encourages you to prepare activities which work for anyone, no matter if you are neurodivergent or non-neurodivergent. So it's something worth remembering, just seamless. People don't notice they've been chosen because, you know, they tend to lose concentration or focus more often. So, okay, let's do it. Are you ready for my dice? I'm going to throw it twice. Okay, we've got number 3. Don't know how well you can see it. So look for number 3 and number 4. Sorry for the noise. So we have 3 and 4. Let's have a look. Ooh, guys, we are not very lucky. Everybody now should stand up and you have to do 10 jumps over a pencil on the floor. I hope you have a pencil. I hope you have the floor where you are and 10 jumps. So this is what happens in class, yes, that students get this chance to, in a sense, stop working cognitively. Yes, they can actually relax in such a way. And it really does help. And no matter, as I said, if you're neurodivergent or not, it simply helps people focus, okay? Now, if you teach younger students, you will find lots of similar activities. I search on Instagram, plenty of ideas where these brain breaks have photos that accompany the activities. A lot of students and UDL generally advises you to be multimodal, at least in 2 different ways. If you like, you may come up with these, you know, a box or a mug with sticks and write down ideas, and students draw the sticks and, you know, perform the activity accordingly to what they have chosen. Or the best would be, talking about choice, to ask your students to come up with activities, physical activities they are prepared to do. So get your students to come up with their own ideas. And they love that because it's their choice. All of these are, as you can see, are my students' ideas. Obviously, students draw something, they have to line up according to their birthdays, etc. So this is what the students love because they can contribute. These are their ideas. And after about a month or a month and a half, I usually have gathered plenty of ideas to use as brain breaks. Yeah, so this pausing is crucial to focus people's minds on learning. Okay, guys, now talking about pausing and my basketball career, I'm glad I became a teacher rather than a basketball player. It's also important to find time to pause, to find out about the people you teach. Usually, a lot of us focus on get to know each other activities at the beginning of the school year, but it's never enough because in the first lesson, you just find out what people kind of, I don't know, like hobbies and stuff like this, holidays. But I think it's good to pause and to find time, like a couple of minutes, every 2 lessons, perhaps, to design activities which will help students get to know each other even better, work as a cohesive group, yes, to gel as a team. So that's wonderful. And what I tend to do is, for example, this, where I encourage students to design their own planet. As you can see, this one also comes from Instagram. I love this idea. It works with kind of kids and teenagers and even adults, if you have a playful group. You get the students to design their own planet. You can use visuals. Visuals always help. UDL encourages students to have access to visuals. It makes it perhaps more accessible. You can imagine things much easier. And get the students to share their visions of their own favorite planet. So that it's usually what you get is how students want to live and where they want to live and what they want things to look like. So it's nice to find time to share things about each other. This is a photograph I took some time ago. And because if you want your students to be happy in the classroom and comfortable, they have to know people they work with. Trust is built on the knowledge that we have of ourselves and also of other people. What we know about the people we are in the classroom with, it's tremendously important. So I often encourage students to either bring to the class objects which somehow suggest what these people like, objects which symbolize them, represent them. If students cannot bring stuff to school, they can take a photograph and either send it to you, or if they can use the phones in class, show the photos on the phones. And this is a photo that represented me. This was like taken a few years ago. As you can see, my glasses, my glass of water is only a glass of water, and a computer mouse. And the students were guessing why I decided to include glasses and a computer mouse and a glass of water. Now, if I was doing this now, I would probably include this hummingbird. It's a key ring. Don't know if you can see that very well, but it's a hummingbird. My favorite key ring. It's my blue color, as you can see, goes with my top. I would include my face powder. It's absolutely wonderful. The trouble is I cannot find a replacement now, so I love that. And also, recently I went to a concert, a Chris Botti concert in Poland. So a ticket, and with his face on it, it just reminds me of how wonderful it was. So for the time being, this is me. Yeah. So I would share this with my students and encourage them to share things with me. They open up. A lot of students who usually are shy because of, I don't know, their personality, often open up. They can share or say something about themselves. Yeah. So that's really interesting. UDL always encourages students to share and look for things that they have in common. It's much easier to create an inclusive classroom if students understand each other, if they know what they have in common and how they differ. So find any kinds of activities where students have to find similarities between them, yes? So work in pairs and think about your holidays. Make sure you find 2, 3, 5 similarities that you have in the way you spend your summer holiday, for example. So it's always a nice way to make sure students work together. Now, talking about voice and choice, voice, yes, my voice, as you can hear. We can assume, I think, quite safely that most lessons across the world, wherever you come from, have these elements. So there's some kind of revision, there's some kind of new language. You teach either vocab or grammar, and at some point you want your students to show their understanding, and there is some assessment. Yes, can we assume that that's more or less what we do in different orders, perhaps? But that's generally what teaching of the language of English is about. So let's start with revision. Some time ago, when I wasn't thinking about my students, I was thinking about my own comfort. I am ashamed to say. When I planned revision was like, one exercise for the whole class, 10 minutes. It was usually fun exercise, obviously, but, one exercise for everyone and off you go. Let's see what you remember. Now, when I design my lessons, there's always choice. There's always choice. It's part of my DNA now, part of my mindset, the way I design, plan lessons. There has to be choice. So I came up with this idea, perhaps you have as well, of revision teams. And please make sure you allow for a team of 1, because some students prefer to revise stuff on their own. That's perfectly okay. I teach students at higher levels. So this is vocabulary from about 2 weeks ago that we studied. The lesson was about success and failure and motivation. So these were the expressions that they came up with. And the students, we studied the words, and the next class they came, and I wanted them to revise vocabulary. So I decided to use this activity, which I use very frequently. I give them choice. I say, okay, guys, you can divide yourselves into teams. There is team acronyms where students can see the first letters of the expressions that we've just covered, and they have to work out what these are. So I write on the board, for example, BA, PM, DF. Yeah, so burning ambition, primary motivation, dismal failure, etc. Team matching, or they have to match adjectives and nouns. Team categories, so they divide expressions into positive and negative. Some students like translating, so team translated. Some like team talk, so they look through the phrases and they have to discuss them, put them in sentences, anything spoken. And students like technology, a lot of them, not all of them. Team QR code, where I share, I will share this with you in a moment, a QR code for the students to do something. So give them that choice, how they want to revise vocabulary. This is displayed around the classroom on various posters, on the board, wherever I have space, so students can get up, actually walk around, work on their own, or with their partners and revise, see how much they remember. Now, this is the QR code. And this will, if you want to have a look at it, this presentation is recorded, so you'll have a chance to actually have a go at this. It's a very simple exercise created with the use of word wall. Perhaps you're familiar with this, I bet you are. And where students have to just pair up expressions which go together. So it's like a matching exercise, but through the use of a QR code. So give them the choice how the language is actually revised. Yes, that's it's quite crucial. It seems simple, but it's important because students can choose. And I think this agency is what makes students happy and like you. Yeah, actually. Okay, another type of activity, which again, I'm sure a lot of you use throughout your teaching, is this or that, where you can revise vocabulary that you have covered. This one comes again from some Instagram, I think. And this one was created by ChatGPT. I put in words which we covered in class, so the words are in bold, and ChatGPT just created this for me, this or that, and the students had to like work in pairs and discuss, or write, if they prefer to write, why they prefer this one to that one. But it's, I think, a brilliant idea to give the students, again, just the words, the expressions, and ask them to prepare this or that. Yeah. So, for example, some students might write castle tour or city break. Yes. So this will be their choice again of how they put together this exercise. It's a very small change. Yes, it's like a little tweak, but because they have the choice, it's far more interactive and accessible to a lot of students. Yes, it's not like imposed by the teacher. So that's a good one. Okay, guys. There are plenty of other ideas for revision, but let's move on to new language when we teach vocabulary or grammar. Do you like teaching vocabulary or grammar? Vocabulary team, you can put a V. Grammar team, you can put a G in the chat box. I wonder what's more popular. Generally, it's vocabulary, but I know that there are some teachers who love grammar. Okay. So let's move on. Yes, see what we can do with this. Now, imagine I'm teaching these words again. Even at C1 level, they are quite difficult. A lot of them for Polish students would be hard to pronounce as well. So there's quite a lot of teaching. So I explain a lot and, you know, try to do as much as possible. If students ask me for the word in Polish, I always give it if it helps them, because a lot of students need that. So I see no point in refusing to give them the translation. So we work really hard on that, and I do my best, but still, I'm never sure that the students actually understood my explanations. So again, we need to become like basketball players and pause and find and make sure that students understand. It's important in UDL to pause, not to rush, to give people time to focus and refocus, and simply have things explained to them in the way that works. I'm sure you're familiar with formative assessment. It's something that's been around for many, many years. It's an idea that I kind of used to use a lot before, then I forgot about it, came back to it recently, because I realized that it helps students communicate their needs to me. And if I explain vocabulary and students understand everything pretty well, they show me green. So that I have this in the classroom, green, like pieces of paper. So they show me green, I understand. If they're not so sure, they show me yellow. If they really don't understand something, they show me red. This is time for me to either approach them and help them understand, or this is the time when I can pair them up and help them explain things to each other. It's an old-fashioned way of dealing with things, because formative assessment is actually pretty ancient by now, but it's a very useful and I think quite unobtrusive, perhaps, if I can use this word, technique for the students not to feel so uncomfortable communicating the fact that they don't get something. Yes, so it's worth going back to this if you have forgotten about it. Now, when I explain new words, I want my students to be able to write them, to actually perhaps be able to, in pairs, explain, re-explain the words to their partners, to say them in different way, to write them perhaps, to draw them, to show them, just make sure they can show this understanding. What you can see on the left is what is fundamental to UDL, which is something called choice board. Again, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this. Either tic-tac-toe board or choice board, where you give the students a number of options of how they can possibly record vocabulary or how they can practice vocabulary once you've explained it, okay? So maybe you can ask your students to write or say words in alphabetical order, the words you've just taught. Maybe they can write the words or say them in silly sentences. Maybe they can write 6 words using the wrong hand, or say the words slowly or fast, okay? Maybe they can write words backwards. Maybe they can say the words backwards, okay? Maybe they want to draw the words if they are drawable. Maybe they can show, yes, act out a scene or something. So every time I teach vocabulary these days, I actually do that. I get the students to look at the words we've just covered and try to, like, you know, manipulate them again, process and reprocess. And I think it really helps students focus and understand and benefit from the lesson rather than go home and have to commit something to memory. So this is quite crucial, I think. Okay, this is a technique that I use all the time, where I teach vocabulary, and once I've taught it, students have had the chance to say the words or have had the chance to write the words. They go through the words again and ask each other the following questions. What does this one mean? Can you use this one in a sentence? And this is this kind of, yeah, but it takes time. Yes, guys, it takes time, but if we hurry everything up, students, doesn't matter if they are neurodivergent or non-neurodivergent, they will lose focus. These days, I'd rather teach less, but more effectively, than teach more, but just know that students will not be able to learn everything. It's not the time and not the way our minds work, which we now know because of various brain research. Okay. Now, grammar check is, don't know how you feel about explaining grammar rules to your students. I always sort of explain, we watch various videos these days. Most course books have these videos. We go through the rules, sometimes, you know, let the students discover the rules. But I always point out, also I think UDL is about pointing out the most important things, something that is the most important to commit, or something that, you know, you will have to deal with, for example, in the exam. So emphasize it, underline, make sure that it stands out, students can actually see it. So once we've been through the rules, I encourage the students, as you can see here on these 2 post-it notes, to come up with questions related to grammar points. So yeah, what's special about something, what comes after? As you can see, this is a lesson on conditional. So students read the rules, we practice, and at the end, they test their partners, yeah, on that. So this pause, stop, make sure they actually understand better. Okay. And finally, guys, showing understanding or assessment is something I'm absolutely crazy about. And it again goes back to my daughter, who needed to either make a presentation to show what she knew. She would prefer an oral exam to a written exam. And finally, her teachers understood how she works, and she was actually fairly successful towards the end of her high school, but it just took ages. And I don't want my students to feel like this, you know, I want them to have the choice as soon as they come into my classroom. So they can write things if they prefer, they can tell a story, they can record a voice message if they want that. they can make a presentation, they can make a poster. Obviously, if you teach exam classes, it's not always possible to say, okay, don't write an essay, instead just, draw something. Yeah, that's not the point. But apart from teaching towards the exam, hopefully we also teach just, for fun, and also teach for the students to enjoy learning English. So whenever you have that opportunity, try to vary, yes? Try to make sure that it's not just exam stuff. If you teach towards exam groups, yes, it makes everything so much more accessible, because if you have the choice, you feel, okay, I can manage this, I'll do it because I have the choice. If I don't like writing, I can maybe record a voice message, yes? So it's very important. Now, coming to the end of this session, those of you who perhaps have heard me before, maybe, you will probably know that I'm absolutely crazy about peer testing. It's like a habit. I think UDL just strengthened that habit in me. And every time I teach, this is how I actually begin the lesson, with either revision or, how you feel kind of activity, revision, and then peer testing. And this is how this works. At the back of the notebook, each student has something like this, 3-column table, where in the first column you see just page 10 from the course book. Page 10 was full of vocabulary connected with failure, success, and motivation. This is the name of the person. Antek is a Polish name for Anthony. A name of the person who is going to test me. So imagine my name is, you don't have to imagine this. My name is Marta. We're working on page 10, vocabulary. Antek, my friend from next door, next chair to me, is going to test me on these expressions. There are 10 expressions. I remembered 8. Okay, so Antek at the end of the test gives me 8 out of 10. The next lesson, we focus on something else, page 12. I'm going to be tested by Pauline, and perhaps, hopefully, I will score maybe 9 out of 10. And students collect these points. They're not for me to see, they are for the students to work with their partners, to learn to trust them. Because you know what happens in class, sometimes someone is stronger, weaker. In this case, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that the students work towards a common goal, which is basically learning together, learning from each other. And they love that. They just absolutely adore it. And it's nothing to do with me. I don't even have to know the points. It's for them to have that. And you know what happens? At the beginning of the lesson, some students feel, okay, I'm ready for this. I studied this time. I want to prepare. I want to make sure that I get 10 out of 10, for example. So it does work and help their motivation. Okay, to finish off, guys, I don't know if you're familiar with this site, Never Stop Learning. It offers a number of different activities, but my absolute favorite is this one, where, again, at the end of the lesson, I know it's very hard because we always rush and, make sure we cover this and that, but try as often as I can to find time, or make time sometimes. It's not about finding time, is it? It's about making time. Like a couple of minutes, 3 minutes for the students to reflect on what happened in class. So it's called like a plenary. So at the end, there are some ideas for plenaries. And this is what it looks like. On this site, you can find a grid, and it's beautiful because it's editable. You can edit the ideas, yeah? So obviously use these, no problem. Again, you can use your favorite dice or online dice. But why not ask your students to come up with some other ideas to reflect on what happened in the lesson, what they have learned, what they haven't learned, yes, what they need more of. So it's actually very important to keep students engaged, to show them that you care, so that they care as well. Yeah, it's really fundamental to UDL as well. Okay, guys. So yeah, basketball used to be my favorite sport. Pausing, remember to pause. I know we have to rush to the curriculum, but there has to be time to pause and stop and ask students about their emotions, ask them about themselves, help them express themselves and talk to each other as well. and reflect on the learning. Yeah, that's very, very important to make these stops. Okay, so please remember, think big. So UDL is a big idea. If you are new to UDL, start small, implement small ideas, little tweaks, yes, for big impact, and see how this works. And it should work, really, because you made little changes by giving choice and voice, and it does actually work. But obviously, most of all, start, because without that, nothing will actually happen. Okay, now, if you want to answer any of these questions, you may. I know that I was supposed to give you choice, so I don't know what is true engagement for you. If you like peer testing, how important you find making pauses during your lessons. I hope you do. And yeah, guys, enjoy, don't be afraid, use, experiment. It's for your benefit as well as your students, and it does work, honestly. It's universal, as the name suggests. Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marta. Thank you. Thank you for putting that all together.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, I'm super excited as well. I just wish I could see everyone and just, shake hands and hug and stuff. But
That'd be nice. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I was actually thinking it'd be nice to be able to sort of let people put their cameras on if they want to. We can sort of have an area where we can sort of see people's reactions.
yeah, give them the choice. But yes, next time maybe.
Next time. Thank you very much, Marta.
Okay.
Part 2 of 3 done. Marta's coming back this evening. She's got a very late night session tonight. So I'll let you go, Marta. Have a nice break. I'll see you in a few hours.
Okay.
Okie dokie, everybody. Score out of 10. What do you think? UDL, do you feel, what's the answer to the question I asked you earlier? Do you know what UDL is? Are you completely new to it? Do you feel that you sort of have a nice introduction and that you've got a few ways to start becoming a slightly more UDL teacher in your toolbox now? Answer in the chat box. Good. Me too, Eva. Absolute eye-opener. Isn't it just a wonderful way? It seems like such a simple idea to change your mindset. I'm sure it's more complicated than that in practice. It does probably involve adapting your lesson plans more than you ordinarily would. But those small, as Marta said, making a small step, making those small changes could make all the difference to all of those students in your classroom. Okay. I'm going to assume you can see that just fine. I think you can. So I'm going to ask you again, because a lot of people actually sort of come halfway through and come after the beginning part. So I'm going to ask you again. We're going to put a poll up on the screen in a sec. And I just want to ask, I can't actually say exactly the date, but quite soon, it will be soon, it's mostly built already. We will have a website, a part of our sort of an ecosystem within our website, an environment which is dedicated to UDL, which we'll be updating iteratively, and there will be sort of pieces added to it, as well as the big sort of launch of the page. This event is kind of coordinated with that effort as well. So we would like you to know, if you want to know when that goes live, we can ping you a quick email to let you know about that. And yeah, so there's going to be a poll coming up, if you don't mind, Gabby, just popping that up. And if you would like to get that email, say yes. If you sort of think, no, I don't want that email, thanks. I don't want any more materials, thank you very much, Will. Then just say no thanks. Of course, no hard feelings. Apart from the hard feelings in my heart, if you said no. No, only joking. Okay, I'll let that poll run for a little bit while I carry on. A few people will want to know about this. You've got your certificate coming in about a week. Please don't email us before then. It will take up to a week. It won't come by Friday. It might not come by Monday or Tuesday, even next week. Sometimes we run across, we come across issues with sending out all of the, it's quite a large email that we've got to send out. Anyway, so just give us a chance. Give us some time until next Wednesday. And also, we are giving you your virtual goodie bag right now. I think, if you can. If you don't mind, Gabby, ping it up, or I can do it. There you go. It's open. There you go. There's a link at the bottom, your virtual goodie bag. You can get that right now. So within that goodie bag, you're going to have a comprehensive guide to inclusive teaching. It's not UDL, it's inclusive teaching. There is a difference, but it's not a book. It's a sort of a guide for ELT teachers to have a more inclusive classroom in your lesson planning and your classroom approach. And also an interactive UDL flowchart, which will sort of take you across along various questions, as I'm sure you know what flowcharts do. It will ask you various questions and see where you are, help you find out where you are in your UDL journey. Maybe you already are doing a lot of this, and you're kind of already part way along it anyway, and you don't realize it. And the other part, the other thing we're giving away is called a challenge catcher. Yes or no? Have you ever heard what a challenge catcher is? I know what these things are. I can picture it, and I've done them many times in my life, but I didn't know they were called challenge catchers. Do you know what a challenge catcher is? Some of you, yes, some of you know. It's those things where you go like this, and you open it up, and you sort of do that, and it opens up, and you sort of say number 4. Okay, then you do it 4 times, and it says another question, and then you open up that tab, and it gives you the answer. Do you remember those things? I did them a lot as a kid. Anyway, that's what that is. And it's a UDL challenge catcher. You can print it out and you can do it. You can make it. Your students can use it. So it's there. It's yours. It's all in the virtual goodie bag, which is linked just there. Go and take a look. Also, give us a week, but the recordings and the presentation from today will also be in there. But just give it a bit of time. A few days. In case you didn't catch this earlier, we've got 3 more events coming this year, which are now open for registration. We've got our Young Learners Day on the 12th of November. You can see the talks and the titles and the wonderful speakers, so I won't go into that again because I already did it earlier. We've got the Preparing Teens Day on the 26th of November, and we've got the Educating Adults Day on the 10th of November. So do come along to those. I will certainly be there. I cannot wait to, again, host, as I love to do. I do love hosting these things. And we will see you there, hopefully. So you can register now. Certificates ahoy, obviously, for all of those. And they're all free. You just need to register and then come. That's it. Good luck on your first small step, everyone, towards UDL. And we will see you again really soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.